know that the leaders controlling the world are not human people. We know that these are not moral or good people. So what happens if they, being our caretakers, they being our parents, are slowly, they have a love-hate relationship towards us. We are their children, so they don't really necessarily wipe out the entire human race, because they know that bad as we are and lost as we are going to one day be, we're made in their image. Mm-hmm. And this frightens me, because this is, to me, I see mankind definitely, again, I'm saying, like I said in the beginning, that this is personally my own idea. Mm-hmm. I don't want anybody to, necessarily take this, as gospel or anything like that, but I tend to think that there could be something to this. And I've, studied Malthus and Hobbes all my life. I've studied the philosophers of John Stuart Mill and Jeremy Bentham and the Fabian Society. I love reading these guys, and these philosophies are very interesting to me. Mm-hmm. But when I take it all together with the way things are moving and with New World Order philosophy, I can't help thinking, you see, that this is what man is turning into. Mm-hmm. If I ever needed any proof, I just need to step out into the street. I don't like what human beings are becoming. I don't like the way that the youth, who are cruel, sadistic, lost, jaded, cut off, dehumanized, desensitized, sense-infatuated, you see. I don't like what I see. And I'm not going to just, dismiss it and say, that's just a phase. We are in some very, very troubled times. And the human traits, what are considered the human traits, the mores, the morals, whatever you want to call it, the virtues, are passing like, snowflakes melting in a volcano. It's just passing away before our eyes. And so my concern, therefore, is not that the world will end or that nature will end, but that the man, as we know him today and have known him in the past, this entity, this creature is going to, terminate at some point, to be replaced by something much more sinister and much more unreal.
So is this about taking away the spirit in man, the essence of where we think at least our morality lies and all of this? Is that where?
Yeah, it's the ending of virtue. It's the ending of man's. See, what is it that makes a man a man? What is it that makes human beings human? There's only two things. One is that he is free to choose to be rational or not. Mm-hmm. Right. So when people say, a man's born free, right? Man's free. Yes, he's free, but that's only half the sentence. He's free to do something. That is, he's free to either use his intelligence or not to use it. Mm-hmm. That's what he's free to do. Mm-hmm. And most men that you look at today are choosing not to think. Mm-hmm. More importantly, a lot of men that you see in this today's world, the human race, is choosing not to feel.
That's right.
If you want to split hairs about it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But here's the problem with that. That which makes you truly human, if you decide not to do it anymore, for whatever reason, I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why a human being might choose to murder themselves, as we've spoken about in previous shows, mm-hmm. or not feel, or not have emotion, or throw emotion away, or even not be conscious, or not rational. Every person has a reason for doing that. But just in general, let's just say that if you do choose to not face yourself, or because you're so self-sadistic, you've literally murdered your own emotions, or whatever terminology you want to use, you've done it because you want to avoid pain. Mm-hmm. Psychologists know this. It's a common problem. We have darker emotions. We have things that cause us great emotional distress. So we stop being introverted. We don't look at ourselves. We don't face ourselves, and we block it, either by constantly working, or running in the world, or taking pharmaceutical drugs, or whatever. The 101 ways we avoid ourselves. We've talked about this in previous shows. Yeah. We call it the inauthentic life. However, there's a problem. The person who prevents themselves feeling pain, he also desensitizes himself to feeling pleasure too.
That's right.
Because you can't split it, Yeah. If you cut yourself off, if you dumb down your feeling, hey, I don't want to feel any pain, unfortunately with that comes a slow desensitization to pleasure also. Now, of course, that affects your relationships. It affects your life. You don't smell the roses anymore. You don't see the sunset anymore. Mm-hmm. You're not open to the finer human feelings towards animals and, nature and to human beings. Mm-hmm. So what we're seeing now is a youth generation, and generally a middle class, it's basically a pandemic in the world, is that man, in order to run away from those emotions that he thinks are painful, meaning his shadow self, his dark side of himself, has actually made a mistake and closed himself off to feeling entirely.
Yeah.
So he's wrapped in cellophane. And if you're not feeling pleasure and pain, in fact, if you're not feeling at all and you become so desensitized, haven't you then ceased to be a human being?
Yeah.
Because that's what makes a human being tick, is that he can feel, he can think. If you stop doing that because you were trying to save yourself pain, you now become so desensitized that you've stopped working on the human level altogether. And now the only things that turn you on have to be extreme versions of sensual fulfillment. Meaning that the stimuli that needs to come in now needs to be so gratuitous, you see.
Intensified.
Yes, exactly. And aren't we seeing that exact symptom?
That's right, yeah.
Jaded face. You just need to walk past people in the mall and you just, oh my God, it's worse than the Night of the Living Dead. Soulless, empty, sense-infatuated, utterly, dispossessed, soulless people. And it's because they've run away from what Jung called the darker emotions. What did Jung say? Man will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing his own soul.
Sure, that's right.
And then in my, web stream, I amended the quote to say, man will do anything, no matter how absurd, to stop facing his shadow self. Because it's avoidance of legitimate suffering that has caused all of this.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, if we do end up in this technotronic world, you see, it will not be because, as you say, somebody has come to take your soul. It's because you've given up your soul. You yourself have offered it on a plate to anyone who will buy it. You can't blame, the Nephilim or the Illuminati for buying what you sold them.
That's right.
If you've handed up your spirit, go, Doc, life's too painful, it's a bummer, I don't like that, or, she broke my heart, or he broke my heart, or life's a bitch, I don't like to work. And for whatever reason, you're not dealing with your inauthenticity, you haven't taken responsibility for your life, you're not moving from a passion, then don't blame those who pick up the garbage later on. If you have trashed your soul, how can you blame, it's like that Star Wars, the little guys who run around picking up all the trash, those little cyborgs. How can you blame them from going and, selling you on the black market if you're pieces of junk, scrap metal?
Sure, that's right.
When you abdicate right rulership of yourself, when you cannot take responsibility, when you do not own your so-called shadow side, when you do not know how to manage, your own life and take the good and the bad together, then you will breed these Orwellian, dictators who are now well and truly in power. You call them neocons or whatever you want. But this is an old story going back to the Roman Empire but beyond. It certainly is a story of the Industrial Revolution, you see.
Hey, I just want to interject there because you mentioned the neocons, and isn't it interesting that if you actually go into Wikipedia and type in the Vulcans, you actually get the Bush administration, basically the Condoleezza Rice and a few others that actually refer to themselves as the Vulcans. And again, this is of course about controlling or almost removing to some degree the emotional,
Absolutely. This is a perfect example of what is the Vulcans, a super advanced technotronic race who literally turned off the emotion switch. They sat down, they methodically and philosophically worked it out that emotions are troublesome. And they turned off that, dial. I believe this is what these Nephilim controllers of the world had done on their own planet. I believe that that's what they did. They had good reasons for doing it. They really worked this out mathematically. They sat down and they all decided. And so now they're down here with us. The red men. We're running around sort of. They're children, unruly kids who haven't quite got it yet. But with their assistance, with their midwifing, you see, we'll get it. And they reward those, you see, who become more scientific, more left brain, colder. You see, these are the people in our society who are rewarded, in fact, instantly. As soon as you operate from that, my goodness, you're a general overnight. You'll be the head of a corporation. So we wonder, the other guy sits there and wonder, why all the evil, why these guys, why does the world operate like this? How come they have no humanity? Well, maybe because we are not only being run by people, we're not only being guided and ruled by soulless, anti-human, inorganic souls who've lost all of their sense of, feeling, who are extremely necrotic, but maybe the highest agenda is that we are meant to follow suit. Now, my message is, look, that might sound really obnoxious to most people and absolutely horrible, but is it? If your neighbor and people in your family and people you work with have become so ghost-like in their own shell, if they've become so disembodied within their own being, so ungrounded, if they have become so estranged from their own souls, if they're living in persona world, are you going to then tell me that they don't need the handrails, you see, that is provided by that Leviathan? I guarantee you they're going to. I'm telling you that it's happening now. The record levels of drugs, you see, that are being taken, both illegal and legal.
That's right.
So we may not ever see utopia. I have no doubts about it.
Yeah.
That we're not heading for any utopia. The Piscean age is closing, but I don't see anybody doing any spiritual homework that should end up. I think we should divest ourselves of a lot of these illusions. I'm not a doom prophet, but I also do believe we have to see reality.
That's right.
Not our faked idea of the reality or some new age claptrap. We have to face the fact that people are not doing their inner homework. They're running headlong from the authentic life. Through the primal guilt and things we've talked about in other shows.
Yeah, and this ties, again, we could tie this right back to Huxley, again, of course, about introducing the soma or whatever, removing the suffering in order to go towards this, I guess what he or they will refer to as a utopia. But Adam Curtis has made documentaries about this, that there is a political philosophy that sees the emotions in man as the enemy, and that we have to remove that in order to, obtain the order, out of this chaos that we have here.
That's right. We must never forget that there has been external individuals who've kept this as a big philosophy for many, many centuries, for generations, and that anyone who knows about the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations in London, or the Frankfurt School in Germany, or in an American context, you want to be talking about the Trilateral Commission and Council on Foreign Relations, and many other think tanks like RAND and the Brookings Institute, and all sorts of MIT, CIT, SRI.
Stanford Research.
Sure, Stanford Research Institute. These people are hell bent on this. They want to make manifest the philosophies of some very interesting men who also believe this, that man is kept down by his emotions. He's awfully troubled by these emotions. These emotions also, they make him an imperfect work unit. You see all those troublesome emotions, and of course you also start, through your emotional feeling centers, you might start questioning reality. They also don't want that.
That's right.
See?
Yeah.
So they want to, teach you to use your left brain to cut off your emotions. Children are taught from day one. If a child shows any legitimately true emotion, the parent usually instantly stifles it. Yeah. If a child, comes in all exuberant and happy and screaming and yelling about something, the parent almost inevitably thinks, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you be quiet?" See, we don't even notice it. It's done so often.
Yeah, that's right.
If a child is gloomy or down, or "I hate you, I hate you, I hate him, look what he did," we'll say, "Oh, you don't really feel like that? Don't you say that? You don't really hate your brother. You don't really hate that person or your friend, Well, wait a minute. That's a form of censorship.
Sure.
Why don't you go with the emotion and find out and lead that through? And we're not going to get into the whole upbringing of children on this show, but don't get me started. But what I'm trying to say is that there is this repressive, constant teaching of the child: doubt your emotions, block your emotions, repress your emotions, deny your emotions. Okay. And of course, then the kids who grow up to be teenagers and then adults who do exactly that. They're suspicious of emotions. And if you don't, there's actually a technical term for it. I can't remember what it is right now, but it's the inability to read emotional tone in others. A lot of people have it. So if you have cut off your emotions, you can't read emotional language in others. We get a lot of these people in the corporate world. You end up working with them. They're so closed off from their own emotions that they have no way of reading your emotional signals. And this is chaos, And so we're living in a world right now, you see, where even those cues and affectations that are normal human, body language and emotional tone and subtext, nobody's able to accept it anymore. You can work in certain places where there's no concept of subtext. They have no idea, unless you have almost a legalistic explanation of everything, they don't understand what you're talking about. Try that on the Cockneys or anybody, they'd be lost, everything's all innuendo and, subtlety.
Yeah.
Well, these are beautiful subtleties of language that many, people have, certain subcultures like the Cockneys and others. There's many others.
Sure.
This is getting lost in the world today, in which you almost have to be a machine, to speak in such logical, politically correct terms,
well, exactly,
to be even understood.
Double plus good. We could tie this back to Orwell and all of this. Again, it's about, even removing the language in order to be able to express yourself or your emotions,
That's right. Exactly. And of course, what's happening now is that people distrust their emotions, they inhibit themselves, and then they lose the ability to communicate on an emotional level to other people. And what this means is then that the needs of the other person or their genuine emotional signals are not being registered anymore. And this is what you're getting right across the counter. You go into banks, you go into stores, you try to get served somewhere, and this is what you're bumping into. Waiters, who they're completely sterile. They cannot read your language anymore. And if you are an expressive, creative person who hasn't got all these blockages, you're going to be living in a very, very, inhibited place that you're not going to like too much. But one of the other factors we have to really understand is this whole action of Pluto. And I get a lot of emails of people wanting to, see how this is happening. They're feeling the effects of Pluto, where I've said that it will be felt, which is right in the domestic life first, right in the relationships world first. But again, on a broader level, Pluto is, I believe, is connected to the Holy Spirit. So, I'm not negative about all of this because I do see that there's also a tremendous component here of positivity, like we've said on other shows. What Pluto does is it does divide, though. I mean, you're seeing what you're seeing right now, and not in 2012, but right now, is a dividing between the sane and the unsane. Now, Pluto, as said in other work, is connected to Shiva.
Yeah.
The god Shiva, but Shiva was connected to mountains, especially the Himalayas. And the mountain is a very important metaphor. I use it a lot. I think we've used it before because I was talking about how the sane man, the strong man, who's ascending the mountain of life, even though he has to climb over broken rocks, even though his lungs hurt, even though it's a tremendously lonely process and cold and hard. If he continue and the climb, of course, as you climb gets steeper, right, and the weights get heavier. I mean, people will understand the meaning of the metaphor here. But the beautiful exaltation of that is that now you start to see a bigger and bigger panoply of the world. So this is the plus. That's Anyone who's climbed a physical mountain knows this, and it's bloody the same thing when you're doing the spiritual homework. Is when you climb higher and higher, it may be harder and harder. There may be less tourists on the way to keep you company, but there's nothing to compare to that vista that you get to see reality as it really is. Now, we know that those are the few sane men who have nothing to worry about with what we're talking about here today. They ain't going to be experiencing no technotopia because they're true. They're dealing with their emotions, they're dealing with what is real, and they're continuing their spiritual work. They do not come under the heading of what we're talking about today. What I'm talking about is the future that lurks for the person who turns back and heads right back down to ground zero, to base camp, and goes, oh, that's too tough, can't handle that. Let me go back to the village. Patrick McGowan. If you want to use the word village with a capital V. I am back. Where's the bars? Where's my number? Because I want the limited vision of the village, and I want the villagers to keep me company. Well, that's the kind of person who has now, escaped from himself. And escape from reality. He's not interested in reality, so don't try to force it down his throat. He's not interested in changing the world, feeding the poor, the hungry, or anything. He's interested in escape and forgetfulness. He wants TV and Oprah Winfrey and there's 2 weeks of holiday and the job and the corporate awards.
Sure.
See, he feels comfortable in that world. It's he who I'm worried about, because by abnegating selfhood and by abnegating the truth, he is then allowing his rulers to conveyor belt him in exactly the direction they want. Because he's sitting in their bus. He is not rebelling. He is not living authentically. So now he has become a pawn that they can do anything they want with. You see?
And he wants that.
And he wants it. He has literally signed on as their child.
So it's this step here that kind of takes us or those who don't choose then to climb the mountain, as it were, to go towards this direction of the, as you call, the technotopia, meaning that we're going to have the cyborg now. We're going to have all the genetic human genome combinations, the chimeras and the splicing, and potentially that this might lead us into some new areas, basically.
Well, Werner Vinge, he was a San Diego University professor of computer science. In 1993, he said, a quote that's very similar to the one that you started the program with from Steve Quayle. Vinge says that we are on the edge of change comparable to the rise of human life on Earth. Within 30 years, we will have the technological means to create superhuman intelligence. Shortly after that, the human era will end. That's exactly what my thrust of 2012 is about. It's not about ascending to some higher spiritual plane, and all of this other junk that you hear. It's about facing facts and realizing that, look, we are heading, this is not just something in the last 10 years or 13 years. This has been a movement from the time of Francis Bacon and probably before that. We've got very sick, unsane unsane alien people, alien forces ruling this world. And they've been steering us, into whichever direction they feel we need to go. It's just that we have now more perks. You can travel to this hell first class. That's all the difference. They can take you to purgatory. They can take you right down into, the abyss of destruction. But believe me, you're going to go first class. We got television. We got video games. We got, we can turn you on. You'll have a headset. You'll enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
It's that restaurant at the end of the universe, Douglas Adams' Perfect Nightmare, where you pay $1 million to watch the Big Bang at the end of the world. Didn't somebody say, it was a brilliant quote that, I think I have it somewhere. It was, it was from Jerry Mander, the guy who wrote the 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. He's a great writer. He said mankind's self-alienation has reached such a degree that it can experience its own destruction as an aesthetic pleasure of the first order.
Huh.
When I look around, that's what I see.
Yeah.
That, people have become so jaded now, the drugs aren't doing it. So we're in this Jim Morrison sort of, the end, the song The End,
Yeah.
All the children are insane, and we're in a situation, and he predicted, he already saw it coming, that man has become so desensitized now that his own destruction, either through drugs or through some other bizarre means, that's his new high. He's itching for it. He wants to buy a ticket. Because why? He's given up being human. But nobody can stop you being human. I mean, they will try. We're not saying that there's not an overt action. There is. But that has no power unless in some way you want it to happen. Nobody can take your soul. You have to give it away. And so this is what I think is happening.